Okay, so we're back with another Percy Jackson Season 1 review. And today we'll be talking about Episode 5, A God Buys Us Cheeseburgers, which follows up from the cliffhanger of Percy falling off a cliff pretty much, and then being saved by his dad. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it, shall we? Oh, and spoilers ahead, obviously. Let's go. Okay, so we start off the episode following Annabeth and Grover as they stand near the arch with emergency services all crowded around, as they rightfully think there's been some sort of terrorist attack or something like that. And I gotta wonder, where's Echidna? Where's Chimera? Did they just leave? Hell, I mean, they would have seen that big beam of water save Percy's life, wouldn't they? Were they not looking down? They know they did nothing in the end, surely. Or did they actually take note of Poseidon helping his son and so they left so they didn't get in trouble? Because if not, why didn't they just chase down Annabeth or something like that? After all, Echidna still has to train her kid, right? And Athena has proven that she ain't gonna do anything. So what gives? Why'd they leave? They hunted them all the way through St. Louis. And now when these kids are alone, walking along the road, she's not gonna do anything? Plot armor. Grover then notices that random civilians are starting to suspect them for some reason, whilst Annabeth takes note of the fates, changing it from Percy to her that sees them. And they cut a thread, symbolizing that a life is going to end at some point in relation to these events. And I had to reread the book briefly to figure this part out because it had been a while. But apparently it's revealed at the end of the series that it's Luke's death being symbolized here. So that's a payoff a long way away. And I honestly like that it was Annabeth that saw it in the show. For me, this is actually a good change because, one, it actually means something to her as opposed to Percy, who wouldn't really understand what's going on. But also because Luke is much more tied to her rather than Percy, and he always was. His death is a more significant event for Annabeth. He's like her older brother, I hope. Please kill the pedo storyline dead. Please, Rick. Please! I love the franchise, but sometimes his choices regarding characters' personalities and whatnot, they're just so stupid, and this is one that is truly bad. But yeah, let's move on. I also felt like the timing here, it makes a lot of sense. We see that Kronos has previously been talking to Percy in a lot of his dreams, which to me was almost like he was trying to tempt him. After all, he did warn them they were about to be in trouble, slowly trying to pull them to his side as the gods slowly abandoned them. And all the while, Percy had this disdain for Poseidon because Poseidon remained silent, and so fate remained uncertain. But by saving his son and openly showing him that he actually cares and will fight for him, I feel like it shut the door on Percy ever joining up with Kronos, and thus it seals Luke's fate. It seals his death in the end because he'll be the chosen one by Kronos. Hence the cutting of the yarn now. There's no turning back. And thematically, I just think it makes a lot of sense to have it here. And also, from a metaphorical perspective, even though it clearly means Luke, you could also argue that it maybe represents the death of Annabeth's past self, her total and complete faith in her mother and her generosity, but that's probably just me trying to overcomplicate things. The team then reunited and we have some cute Percy and Annabeth moments. That was a very, very long hug. Gotta say, this episode in general is very shippy. And if you're very quiet, you can almost hear the furious typing of fanfic writers in the wake of its release. Anyway, this scene made me a little bit worried as Percy comes across as simping his dad quite hard, which, to me, he's still a massive deadbeat, regardless of if he saved you this one time. I don't care if he was watching you through the water. He never did shit for you, kid. Remember that. I mean, couldn't the dude have used his godly powers to intervene and save Sally from the Minotaur? I mean, there was a river nearby, right? Or a pond or something. And it was raining. Geez, use a puddle, son. Plus, Medusa's words also remain ominous to me when she describes Poseidon as a monster. And in the Greek myth, he really can be a monster. So I'm curious as to whether they make any changes and go in that direction, because in the book, Poseidon is a Chad dad, like by far the best godly parent. And Athena's actually really good in the books too. She claims all her kids from birth and actually genuinely loves them and cares about them. Here, they've changed that. Not as much. Surely they're going to make changes to Poseidon too, because it adds a little bit of depth to this whole deal. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. And it's at this point that they realise that their hopes of travel have been thwarted by cops, as now they're fugitives. And they have to walk all the way to Santa Monica. And a little bit of Google Mappery will tell you that if they walk non-stop without sleeping, it's still going to take them almost a month to arrive where they're going. So, guess they're not going to make it by the deadline, will they? And so, without any options, they just walk, with Percy coming to the realization that he is well and truly in over his head. No shit, kid. And this supposedly simple mission is a tangled web of plots and schemes that they have no chance of unraveling alone. And humorously, he's also the last to realize this. Oh, Bless him, at least he's trying. But an intelligent lad, he is not right now. Good thing he has the child of the goddess of wisdom along for the ride. And then we build up some tension with the mystery of the fate string, where the trio speculate about how one of them's going to die before the end of the quest, before we get our first look at Ares, who, in my eyes, he felt a lot different to the character from the books. I saw complaints about the lack of fire eyes, and I'll tell you this, that would have looked hokey, it would have looked stupid, it would look cringe, I promise you that. He's better off with normal eyes. That description is the kind of cringy shit that people who are trying to get across to the audience that this is an edgy, unpredictable dude would include. It was never good writing, let's be real. Visually, people would laugh at that, not in a good way. They'd say, oh, what is this cringe? Click, remote switches it off. I guarantee. So it makes sense to ditch it for a character you're supposed to take somewhat seriously. And yeah, visually, he's fine. At first, I did think it was a little bit goofy that his character would be wearing a helmet when riding his motorbike, but then I noticed it kind of looks like an old-style army helmet, sort of like a World War helmet, so maybe that's part of his vibe. And if so, pretty clever. And if not, fun little connection to make anyway. What I did note, though, is his personality. Throughout this entire episode, he is way goofier than I remember him being on the page. And honestly, it's something I enjoyed. The way he's written in the book, for the tone of the show that they're going for, it would feel off and kind of forced and pretty cringy. He does have moments where he brings that back to the forefront, but here, it's like he's been intentionally stuck eternally as an edgy teenager, unable to move on. And I think that makes a lot of sense. In this first scene, he reveals who he is, using the connection as Percy's cousin to try and earn his trust. But of course, he later reveals this to be a bunch of bullshit when he admits that he hates kids. Even his own kids. Lovely man. And then even better, he tells them to meet him at some vague point down the long road, forcing them to walk the entire distance. Now that is a power move, you gotta respect that. They head to the diner, and what's Ares doing? In one of my favourite additions to his character, in his downtime from God of Warring, he starts Twitter wars, starting them through, I assume, trolling and flaming and mean comments. This was genuinely a very clever addition to his character, and it also ties back into that idea of him being stuck permanently in the edgy teen phase, and doing everything that teens like that would find funny, doing everything that they think would look cool, sometimes wrongly. So yeah, he feels like he's supposed to be that sort of peaked in high school, edgelord type of person, and it works well. Especially since a big part of his arc in the book is bullying. Getting into arguments, then physical fights with kids. That's not the actions of anybody with even an ounce of maturity. Ares then reveals that Gabe is cooperating with authorities and painting Percy as deranged and blaming him for the disappearance of Sally and his beloved Chimera, bursting into tears whilst talking about his missing car. Jeez. Gabe is very funny in these small glimpses we get. The actor is top tier. Please do not make him abusive. Please do not kill him off. I don't care. Whitewash Gabe. Do it. Make him survive. I'd love to see him appear in cameo roles where Percy just craps on this guy every so often because it'd be so funny. Ares then explains to the kids that in his eyes, no matter what, there is a God War coming, as it's just in their nature to fight and kill and betray their family, to backstab. And from what we've seen so far, pretty hard to disagree with his very honest assessment. They are trash people! And I am still so deeply salty about Athena being willing to straight up let her daughter die over a bit of shade and a prank. Oh, like, come on. Oh no, my daughter didn't stop this boy from reminding everybody what a horrible, unforgiving person I am, who makes rash and hasty decisions to punish people forever. Better make some more rash and hasty decisions to punish my daughter and ensure that I prove Medusa right about me. Damn. But of course, the kids disagree, and they decide they're going to continue on their quest, and so in exchange for his help to get them to Los Angeles, Ares tells them to get his shield back from an amusement park just down the road, with him keeping Grover with him as collateral, so if they don't come back and they try to screw him over, he can just kill him. And being that he's a god and could kill them anyway if he wanted to, they don't really have much of a choice but to do what he says. Also, I did love the brief switch from sort of goofy, angsty loser to straight up menacing and homicidal when Annabeth pisses him off one time too many. Brings back the book vibes very briefly of how I remembered him, and adds a lot of depth to his character, makes him more intriguing, interesting, dangerous. It reminds you that this dude isn't just a 40 plus peaked in high school wannabe biker gangster type. He's a dangerous god. One of the most dangerous ones. One of the most unhinged ones. One of the most violent ones. And honestly, Annabeth is very brave for talking such shit to him and not backing down, even giving him the eyebrow raise when he threatens her. You'd think it would be the opposite. You'd think Percy, not really knowing who he is very well, would be the one to talk shit, but that Annabeth would be much more subdued, as she knows what he's capable of. Oh well. And so the scene then cuts away and our heroes arrive at Waterland, a dank and decrepit water park that feels like it comes straight out of a horror video game. Has some major Last of Us vibes to me. I was expecting a zombie to jump out of nowhere and try to chow down. And Percy, he agrees with me. And then we have the confession from Annabeth that she hasn't even seen any movies. Oh, what life is she living? What do they do for fun at Camp Half-Blood anyway? Just, are they always training? Oh, couldn't be me. Anyway, we get a little bit more shippy stuff where Percy, rather smoothly in my opinion, says that they can go see a movie together at some point before Percy runs into a celestial bronze booby trap as they enter the park, which indicates that this place has been built by a god, with them making it very clear this is a Hephaestus owned property, and apparently he loves to troll people, because this aforementioned celestial bronze booby trap, which looks like it will mince you up good and proper, is just put there in plain sight as you walk past it, and yet it does nothing. It's just there to scare you, to freak you out. And this was actually quite funny to me. Annabeth calls it a test, but nah, I legit think this is just Hephaestus getting a good giggle and making people frightened. And I can respect that. We then also pad out the episode runtime with a look at Ares and Grover. And considering the burgers and the steak, which are meat and would therefore be inedible to Grover the vegetarian, my god, Ares is a unit. Look at all that food he's devoured. And all the while he's just there shitposting and trolling on social media. Based. I gotta say though, this was very much for me a filler scene. It adds a little bit of characterization to both Grover and Ares, but in the end, didn't really move anything along. It was just there to break up the Percy Annabeth scenes. I mean, it does do a little bit to develop characters, makes Grover look a little bit conniving, makes Ares look like a massive piece of shit, as he talks about how he hates even his own kids, and how he's forced to interact with them sometimes. And also it fleshes out his rivalry with his half-sister Athena. But yeah, back to Grover. I think he needed this scene to make him seem a bit more intelligent, because the last couple of episodes, they have not made him look like the best demigod guide of all time. But here, he's getting in the head of a god, he's trying to manipulate him, try to trick him. It was a good showcase. And it plants seeds going forward for future plot revelations as they try to puzzle out the identity of the thief of the Master Bolt. Good stuff. And meanwhile, Percy continues to realize just how terrible his new godly family is. His cousin, Ares, is cucking his half-brother Hephaestus in his own amusement park with their mutual great aunt. How wholesome, how romantic. And so from here we come to the famous Tunnel of Love scene, which here looked less romantic and more horrific than I expected. And my god, the music! Oh man, that song. And then he said, "Oh, I think I've heard this is an orthodontist office." Oh, man, made me feel old. I'll tell you what. But anyway, you could not pay me to go on this creepy-ass ride. And who would even go on this to begin with? Why would they go in here? Being like, oh, let's hook up on here. It's creepy and dank and gross looking. Ugh. And I mean, obviously it was a setup for Ares and Aphrodite, so did Hephaestus make the little light show showing off how hard his life has been just to make them feel guilty? Because that's very pathetic. Dude should just get a divorce, son. It ain't worth it, bro. But I gotta say that the mental image of this craftsman god spending his time working hard on this complex animated story with that song playing over the top, all to make his wife and brother feel bad for what they're doing, it is kind of funny. And then Percy had some dialogue that kind of pissed me off. He had a really good relationship with his mum. And then one drop of affection from his dad, doing the bare minimum to save his life, and then suddenly, oh, she was trying to keep me away from you guys. Oh, she should have prepared me better. Nah, son, nah. The woman literally boxed with a minotaur, and you saying this shit? Nah. Thankfully, Annabeth is there to knock some sense into this fool and make him realize that he is legit the best member of his extended family, and it isn't even close, and it's all because of his awesome mum. He's the only one that seems to have any sense of morality at all, and so he should really embrace that and be thankful to his mum. The ride then gets more intense, and they have to jump into the water, and it seems that Annabeth can't swim? You live at a summer camp and you can't swim? Is that the takeaway from this sequence? Because it's not like the current is dragging her over to that waterfall. It looks like she's straight up sinking to the bottom before Percy manages to unlock his Son of Poseidon water powers and save them both in the nick of time. We then cut away to more Ares Grover filler, but we've discussed that already. Instead, we got to get back to the good stuff. Percy and Annabeth. and Hephaestus' magical throne. A throne so strong that even the gods can't control it, can't destroy it. And so one of them has to sit in the chair while the other one gets the shield. I guess Hephaestus wanted Ares to have to sacrifice somebody close to him in order to get it back. Maybe even Aphrodite herself, to separate them forever type of deal. Jesus, this family's deranged. Is there a god of therapy? Because they need to sit down in that dude's office and hammer things out. Then we have the two leads try to argue about who should be sitting in the chair. Both think they would be the best choice, and honestly I know that they choose Percy. Also, hell yes, Seaweed Brain getting its debut, but Annabeth should be the one sitting in the chair, let's be real. She's fallen out of favour with her mother, but meanwhile Percy has a scheduled appointment with his dad and is in his father's favour. As in, Poseidon is very willing to help him when needs arise. Athena, not so much. On top of that, the whole quest is about Percy clearing his name. Zeus is going to want proof from Percy, the person he's accused, not from two randoms he does not give two shits about. Feels like a major tactical blunder. If Hephaestus hadn't had pity, they'd be screwed. Percy then gets her to promise to save his mum and then hopefully save him one day, and he sits and he turns to gold. And this would have been far more emotional if we hadn't seen Percy already do the noble sacrifice in the previous episode, and it wasn't very obvious that he'd escaped this anyway. But okay. Also, it was a bit of a shift from what they did in the book too, where they get attacked by spiders instead, and a broadcast on TV in Mount Olympus. I honestly think that would have been the better way to go than what they did here. One, because that's kind of funny. But two, the spiders thing, Annabeth's deep fear, that adds a lot more depth to her character and would be an interesting plot point to explore later on. Because I think they will explore it later on, so plant the seeds now. Although, on the other hand, we would have probably missed out on the Hephaestus stuff, which was interesting, and was used to hammer home the idea that the majority of the gods really suck. And so I'm kind of on the fence here. Let me know your thoughts on that. But anyway, he turns to gold. Annabeth's sad. She tries to help him. Hephaestus turns up. And honestly, I wanted to like this. I wanted to. He's actually one of my favorites from the book. But why is he like Willy Wonka here? He turns up and he's playing his little flute. I was expecting Oompa Loompas to come out and start to sing about Percy turning into gold. Just kind of stupid. Is that in the book? Is he so ridiculous? Oh, he didn't even look like a craftsman to me. Lame. But yeah, he acknowledges that Athena went full psycho, so it looks like the narrative, the storyline, they're not letting it go. And good. And then she manages to convince Hephaestus to be a good person and let Percy go by talking about how the system, the way the gods function, is completely wrong, and that Percy is better than that. Which in turn probably spoke to Hephaestus, as he is a major outsider and he's looked down upon by his mother, his brother, his wife, everybody. And then it's all happy days and they bring back the shield to Ares. And I gotta say, note the scowl when he sees them both back safe. He works for Kronos at this point, right? Or at least he's going along with Luke's plans. So is he mad that one of them survived the task and thus they can more easily continue on their quest? Or is he salty that Hephaestus let them go in the end? But if he'd been stuck in the chair, he would have been left there forever? I actually kind of like the second option, as it's funnier to me, let's be honest. But I guess we'll see. Ares then gives them money and a ride to Vegas to meet Hermes, who can help them further. So much for getting them all the way to LA, before talking some shit, which causes Percy to square up with him. And I struggle to take this seriously, but maybe you're not supposed to. And then the episode ended with Grover revealing that he knows who stole the Master Bolt, but leaving the audience on a cliffhanger. How annoying. Because once again, I was left at the end feeling like I just need more of the show. Ugh. But that's got to be a good thing, right? Because I'm always looking forward to the next release. And this episode was good, like really good. My only major gripe being that I didn't really like the Hephaestus stuff. It didn't feel like who he was in the books to me. I don't know, just the vibe I got. Like, I enjoyed being able to see him, but honestly, the way they did in the book with the spiders, I just think it worked a lot better. But that being said, that's the end of the episode. These have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Do you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.